Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, genius economist, venture capitalist, and political analyst and strategist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the rise of antisemitism is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It's great to be with you again, my favorite people, my cohorts. Without you, the program wouldn't be anything. I try to add something, but it's your wisdom, your input that helps me make it more interesting. And it's really a teaching lesson for me, as well as a podcast, because the questions you raise and the criticisms you make are fabulous. So thank you all for your participation and for your brilliant comments, even those that are sometimes a little hurtful, but then you only make progress in life through pain. There's no gain without pain. So when you're critical, or deeply critical, I'm forced to rethink my positions, and I grow from that, because I not necessarily change my positions, but at least rethink them in a way that I could understand where others come from, including my members of my own family who disagree with me, and a number of you that might disagree with me from different times and different points of view that we raise. So without further ado, I just want to welcome you back and thank you for your participation. You're my favorite people in the whole world. I love you. In the interim, as I start to tell you every week, I have to apologize, because the nature of this podcast, and I think almost every podcast that's not humorous or has nothing meaningful to explain or to articulate, it's always about ours, at least mine, is about the news of the week. And as I point out regularly, it's sad, because inevitably the news, all the worthwhile news, the ones that make the headlines, which are the ones we cover on this podcast, are depressing. Bad events, wars, assaults, hate crimes, everything you could think of, immigration, results that are sometimes very harsh and mean and cruel. And when you see young children, even a little more than infants, being kicked out of the country, children that are in this country maybe illegally or legally, but generally there's a reason that they're being deported. Their families are here illegally, and we're told that this beautiful little child or infant is suffering from some terrible disease, and unless she or he is allowed to stay here and get the treatment, will probably be gone in a very short time after we deport them. So all the news that make the headlines are the terrible things that happen, the assaults, the wars, the killings, the hate crimes, the way we mistreat each other as human beings. It's so depressing that it's hard to believe that we're actually a civilized humanity. But whatever the case may be, that's what we deal with. And so it's not surprising that I get depressed from the subjects we bring up and discuss, and you likely do too. So before I start depressing you, I want to do what I always try to do and give you at least a lift on how to be happy. It's interesting, the Constitution or the Bill of Rights says our forefathers urged that their successors are obligated, that we all are obligated, all of us, to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So it's interesting the way they state it, because they don't say life, liberty, and happiness. They say life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Because happiness is a constant pursuit. Life is a thing that exists. Life, liberty is a thing that exists, so it doesn't exist. But happiness is all the days of our lives. If we're healthy, we strive to be happier. So even though I'm going to depress you or serve to depress myself and our audience by virtue of the discussion we have over this hour, I want to give you some hints from my book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Bag. That's on the cover of your screen if you're looking at your screen. And at the bottom of the screen, you can't see it at the bottom of the cover, but it says how to be happy no matter what. And that's what you got to learn to do to pursue happiness, to be happy. But being happy is not really a goal. I mean, not the way we in America have been taught to consider happiness. Usually when people consider happiness, it's because they're on some drugs or they've had 6 alcoholic drinks and they're high and they're smiling and giggling and incoherent. Really, what my goal, even though it says happiness guaranteed, it's what I'm striving to accomplish for me and for all of you is contentment, is satisfaction, is appreciation, is enjoying our being and being in a mood that's uplifting and encouraging and productive and successful in pursuing whatever dreams you have. So that's the point. You should approach every day of your life with a goal. Could be the same goal for 100 years, just like Edison pursued his goal and his dream to create the electric bulb. And he derived gratification, even though he was asked many times, how come you never gave up? You'd failed so many times. And he said, I never failed. And the young man that asked him that question said, of course, everybody knows it's common knowledge that you failed like 1,000 times. And he said, young man, they were all wrong if they said that, because I never failed once. 1,000 times I succeeded in finding out what didn't work and became closer to achieving my goal, my dream. So every day when you get up, count your blessings so you appreciate where you are and how you're doing, and make sure you identify your blessings, because we take it for granted that everything works that way. If we get up healthy and our eyes work and our fingers work and our vitals work, our intestines work, we don't even say we're thanking for our blessing, for our good fortune. That when we get up, we take that for granted. That it's going to be that way. So learn to identify all the blessings you do have that you take for granted. That when you open your eyes in the morning and look out the window and you see nature and you see the trees and the leaves shaking, and you're, the beauty of God's earth and what He gave to us, and just the idea that you're going to have breakfast and something, hopefully something you love, or something that's going to gratify you, your launch of the day. So start each day with counting your blessing. The book that I changed my life was by Bishop Sheen. Was it Sheen? Steen. I always forget. Is it the exact pronunciation of his name? He ran a Catholic church in the middle of Manhattan. I forget the name of it. Anyway, with a top destination for people who come to New York. That church in St. Patrick's. St. Patrick's was number one, and his church was number two. But he wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking, and it put me on the right track. I try to think positively all the time, and it's helped me a lot. Before that, I thought negatively, and I saw the worst of everything, and if something was an impediment for a short time and seemed like too overwhelming to solve, I'd be very depressed. And he said, just be positive, and positive things will happen. So that and all the other great philosophers and great thinkers and great psychiatrists and Freud and our religious leaders and all the Plato and Socrates, the great Greeks, all of those people that gave us the wisdom. Dale Carnegie, who wrote a fabulous book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And this book that you see in front of you captures all of those. Almost everyone that I could find is discussed in this book, is advocated in this book. And so I can't give you all of the wisdom that I learned from all of these ingenious people over the years, all of these brilliant advice that they passed on to us. So I just want to give you to start with. This is 365 pages, this book. Some people said they got a hernia from carrying it around. With new ideas for every day, with humor, with jokes. The book itself is uplifting, but the ideas of how to live and pursue happiness and be happier, not happiness, but content and the feeling that you want to have about life, that it's good, that good things are happening, that you're blessed with all that you have, with appreciation and gratitude. That's the true nature of what real happiness is. Not when you get drunk and you for an hour you're turned on and you're giggling and laughing and doing crazy things and even mischievous things. So let me start the program, today's podcast, by giving you some idea of how you can address your life to make that happen. And so the best idea I can give you is to get a copy of this book, acquire it. If you purchase it and you're not elated with the result, if you don't find it gives you great benefit and joy while you're digesting it and lessons on living better, then return the purchase slip to me, whatever you paid, and I will give you the best deal ever. You can keep the book, and I will return your purchase price, but not only your purchase price, but double your purchase price, and give that money to charity, some useful charity to feed children in poverty or to support hospitals and medical care for the most needy. So it's a win-win situation for you. And I promise you, my experience is that so far since I've published this book and made this offer, I have not received one taker. I'm really ready to do it and to give you double your money. I'm pleased that nobody's bought 100 copies of the book and got double their money back to really make a big profit. But really, the idea that it's a no-lose situation, it's a win-win situation. So, and if you get it as a gift, get the purchase price, or just tell me the purchase price of the person that gave it to you. I will trust what you tell me. I will trust what the person who gave you the gift told you, and I will refund double your money back. But in the absence of being able to do that right now, I urge you to go out and get that. It's not the most costly investment or costly gift I can ever give you, but I promise you it's the most valuable and priceless gift I can give you, or anybody could give you. So, but for today's preparation for handling the depressing nature of our program, the current events, I want to tell you how to begin living a happier life. And that is, start off every day with an ultimate goal that you want to achieve in your life and work towards that goal. Not only a goal, a dream, some dream that you want to fulfill. Like with Edison, it was to produce the first successfully produce the first electric pole. Before that, people couldn't even stay up late. If they stayed up late, they could stay up late, but they wanted to spend their time usefully and read or do anything constructive. They had to do it by candlelight, and it's not a great way to read novels and blink from the candle that's sort of going off and on. So he fulfilled his dream, but every time as he worked each day and thought about his dream and his goal and was pursuing it, it fulfilled his part of that dream. Just as if you're in university and you're studying to be a doctor, each day you finish a course or take an exam and complete it, you're a step closer, you feel good about it, you feel you accomplished something. So make up your mind what's important to you and make that the highest priority in your life. Work to make that happen. Work not necessarily physically, but mentally and intelligently and constructively to make your dreams come true. And when you're working on your dream, that makes every day pass. Instead of thinking about the difficulties you face or the things that are not solved that you got to resolve, or the tragedies that you've lived through, God forbid, or the failures that you experienced. All of that, if you're working towards a dream and you're working at that issue, then that keeps you busy. Stay busy with that activity, and your life will be filled with promise and joy and progress and success. So think about what's important to you, what you'd like to achieve, and think that in your and have that in your mind every day as you start to do your activities, and make that part of you, fulfilling those activities, fulfilling your dream, your goals. So if you do that, just staying busy keeps one happy. Believe me, I've learned that over the years. As long as I stay busy, not with problems, but with thinking about pursuing my goals and my dreams and acting upon that, fulfilling every day is a blessing for me. So right now, think of what's important to you, what you'd like to accomplish in your life. Hopefully, it's the kind of thing that's not totally selfish, but to help others, which is very gratifying when you bring a smile to a child's face who's been starving. You don't know how great that makes you feel. It may not cost a ton of money, but when you can fulfill that dream, or when you help an old lady who has problem crossing the street, it costs you nothing, a little time out of your way maybe, and you see, and she thanks you, and she has a smile on her face. The little things can make you elated. So have a lifetime goal of making the world a better place to live in, for all your neighbors, for your family, for all your loved ones, for your community, for your country, for your fellow man throughout the universe. That'll give you pleasure. That's the way I've spent my time. Instead of spending money when I was young, I thought I'd spend it the way my fellow classmates did, who succeeded as I did, even though I was brought up in poverty and went back to Harvard Business School with no money and zero money, couldn't pay even the tuition. Thankfully, Harvard has had such a big endowment that if you fulfill their requirements and meet their high requisites, their high demands, they paid for everything. They paid my tuition. I went back with 3 little infants, little kids. The oldest was 4 or 5, and the youngest was months old. And they paid for my tuition, my textbooks, my at the time. Today, Harvard has for married people with families dormitories and living space right on their campus. Thank you, Len. On their campus. It's great to have Len Carter's back. You see, he fills in all the spaces. He's a genius. Like me, he graduated top of his class from Harvard Business School, top of his class at another great one of the great schools in America and in the world. Stanford, that's turned out more great inventors, entrepreneurs, geniuses. Google came out of two Russian Jewish students that developed Google while they were still at Stanford. Zuckerberg, who created Facebook and Meta, came out of Harvard. He created, or he took something that existed at Harvard, named Facebook, and made it into a business, and it's worth tens of billions of dollars. So it's just amazing that if you latch onto the right ideas and pursue it, you can find a kind of assistance and help to get your dreams fulfilled, as I did. But most of the people that graduated at the top of my class from Harvard Business School, or I came to Wall Street, my first job, and I was totally broke. And by the time I graduated Harvard when I was 30, and by the time I was 40, I was a multimillionaire. And the dreams that I had when I was younger, that all of my classmates that achieved the kind of success I did, and all of the young Wall Street guys of my era that achieved the kind of success I did, they all bought their own private jets, their own great yachts, their own mansions in the Hamptons or on the Caribbean islands or throughout the world, in Paris or in London. And I chose, even though that was a dream that I had when I was poor and younger, I chose to take all that money that I made and try to make the world a happier place. And so I used it for charitable purposes, to build hospitals, to build schools, colleges, a local college in my area that's opened 24/7. People thank me. They're studying all night. The number one high school in my boys' high school in my area. Scholarships to students at all the medical universities, Mount Sinai, and other prominent medical schools and hospitals. I get so much joy from that, more than any yacht, more than any material thing, because I get letters from these graduates that are today great doctors throughout the country and throughout the world, thanking me and telling me that absent my gift, my scholarship, they could have never gone, that they were poor and had no way to paying the tuition or paying their way, living there while they were addressing their studies. And I get it right after they graduate, which makes me feel great. And they send me a picture of their smiling at their graduation. And then years later, when they're major leaders at their community hospitals or medical centers or medical research activities, I get so much joy. There's no amount of money, or yachts, or mansions, or anything that can match that. So my urging to you is, whatever you can afford, set it aside. In addition to your needs, of course, fill your needs and your own family's needs, and make sure that you put a smile on their face. But whatever else you can, put smile on other people's faces. It's very gratifying. It's the most fulfilling thing you can do and the biggest payback of anything you could do. So start this minute. You're the boss. You're in charge. Don't let life happen to you. Make your life happen as you wish by pursuing worthy goals and objectives that make the world a happier place, make your kids happier, your wife and kids, your best friends, your community, your city, your state, your nation, all of your fellow men. And that's going to be self-fulfilling if you pursue that. So please, start this minute, start today, knowing you're the boss and you can make it happen. God bless you and good luck on your way. So now go out and get the book, as I said. That'll help accelerate your joy and your life and your contentment, not your happiness. If happiness is what you think of the way most Americans do, being jumping up and down and after they took some marijuana or some cocaine or something, or had 12 beers, that's not the kind of happiness. I want you to be content and pleasured by and gratified by and fulfilled by the experience of life. Contentment is what I want you to feel. And so, without further ado, start this minute. Think of what you want to achieve in life, your goals and objectives, and your dreams, your fondest dreams. And as you start working towards them and stay busy doing that, you're going to find that you're never bored and you're always motivated to do good things that help others, but most important, help you feel good. So without further ado, feel good about this podcast today, even though it's going to discuss things that are not happy, wars and laws too, wars and laws and government actions and assaults and gun shootings at elementary schools and high schools. There's so much to be depressed about, and that makes the headlines. That makes them. You can't pick up the headline of the Times or the New York Post or any newspaper and not be depressed if you get into the articles. So, or any media, any television program, news program, or newscast. So, right now, you're the boss. Don't let your mind drift and focus on negatives, as so many of us tend to do, as our nature. It's freakish, but we always think back to the thing, oh, if only this happened, if only I didn't sell that stock when it was 8 and I owned it, and now it's 250, or if only I didn't screw up on some decision and pursued some job that would have made me very rich, because everybody who stayed on that job became very. Don't have regrets. You can't change what we call history. The past is history. The future is a mystery. You can't change the past. You can't, no matter what you do. And the future is to be unraveled, so you can influence it by your actions in the present, but you can't foretell it right now. You don't even know if you'll be healthy and alive during that period. But if you think positively and plan and work towards goals and achieving, rewarding objectives, your life will be happy and you'll be kept busy doing good things, and you won't drift back to unhappy decisions, reversals in your life, tragedies that every one of us has during our lives. You'll move on and you'll have a contented, not happy in the sense that you're jumping up and down, but you will smile more than others. You will be pleased with your progress. You will be fond of your environment, of your kids, of your those you love, your neighbors, your community, your country, your fellow men. So if you do that, I promise you, and especially if you bother to go out and purchase this book, and it's 365 days, one page for every day of the year. Doesn't mean you have to be disciplined and do only one page a year or one page a day. You can do 20 pages if you like. You could do the whole book, but it's to be practiced, not to be read. So it's a good idea if you take one page and think about it and then implement it. So good luck. You're the boss. You can make it happen. The present is what you control, and don't ruin your present by focusing your mind on anything but what you can do now and what you can make better now and forever after. So that's why it's called the present. The present. It is a present. It's every minute. All we have in life is the most valuable thing. Even if you're a multi-billionaire, if you want to pay $1 billion, you can't get an extra half hour of life. So treasure that. Realize how valuable every minute, every day. When you open your eyes in the morning, count your blessings. So without further ado, I don't want to lecture you, but I'm telling you, you will be happier, you will pursue happiness, and you will be content and gratified and have an enviable life. So without any further discussion of how to make you happy, I want to start the program by discussing the events of this week, and don't get too depressed because they recur every week. And I'm pleased to have joined me a fellow graduate of Harvard Business School who, like me, graduated at the top of his class from the best business school in the world. He also graduated from another great school, Stanford University, probably the greatest school developing entrepreneur and techies in Silicon Valley. It's in Silicon Valley, and so many of the greatest companies came out of Stanford as it did from Harvard. Google came out of Stanford. Facebook came out of Harvard. Facebook and Meta. All of these great companies. And he also went to an undergraduate school that's an Ivy League school, a top school, Cornell University, at which he graduated top of his class as an electrical engineer. So I'm pleased to have not Jim Carrey, but Len Carter join me today, as he has so often when I beg him to join me, because he's so bright and so challenging and so aggravating, because he never disagrees with me. I shouldn't say that. He disagrees with me often, and that makes for an exciting program, even though he often aggravates the hell out of me. So without further ado, here's Len Carter, my fellow cohort, along with you all on the weekly podcast.
Thank you, Morty. Good to be here. You know, on a number of times in your introduction, you said that not only is the week's news can be depressing, but a lot of the stories, particularly good stories, don't get into the news.
And news. Good stories get into the news.
Or happy stories or uplifting stories.
Good news does it.
And the ones that do not only can be depressing stories, but also
the good news even gets in, but on the back pages. They don't make the headlines. But the ones that hit you right away off when you get your newspaper, the headlines are all depressing.
And not only the depressing, but the most depressing.
Most
right?
Depressing. Right.
You once said, not only do you have to commit a murder, but you have to commit 10 murders and then put the victims in a freezer and then cannibalize them and make, that it becomes so horrific that it needs to rise up to the level of a headline.
Yeah. Man,
and I think
serial killer. So, because the serial killers
every day of the week, that's not even such a big news.
Yeah, you could be a serial killer.
So I think that sadly,
a serial killer who puts the bodies in a freezer,
right,
and proceeds to eat his victims.
Right. But I think sadly, what we see in the last couple of weeks is the reality of that. And when we look at these two,
why Musk hasn't eaten any.
But in terms of just the horror of these last couple of anti-Semitic attacks, one we saw in Washington, D.C., a lovely engaged couple being gunned down.
A young couple with a promising life right ahead of them.
And then worse than that is...
They had the ring. Her fiancé had a ring that he was going to take her to Jerusalem, where he's located, and give her the ring in Jerusalem.
Right.
And without any regard... And he wasn't even Jewish. He was Christian. And he went to a Jewish event with his girlfriend, who was Jewish. And as they exited the event, some crazy lunatic hollering,
"Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!"
So
killed them. That had nothing to do with Palestinians.
Right. But I think even more horrific than that, and on your headline observation, is in the last week, what we saw happen in Boulder, Colorado, where Mohammed Solomon used a makeshift flamethrower to burn people and Molotov cocktails.
To set them on fire.
Yeah. So in terms of the level of horrificness that we see in terms of headlines, I think sadly that point is true. That these headlines are even beyond a normal shooting as a headline. Now you have flamethrowers and burnings and Molotov cocktails.
And all of the people that he put on fire were hardly in a position to do much harm, because I think all but one was over 68 or over 66 and till 88 or 90. So they're hardly in a position to do much harm.
On me, you shouldn't count on. Okay. So I think let's start there. Let's start in Colorado, looking at this. At what happened there.
Must we? That's too depressing.
How you look at this guy, Mohammed Solomon, had no prior criminal record. He blended in as an accountant, as an Uber driver. Uber, had no criminal record. The Uber drivers usually, supposedly, are background checked to have no criminal record. how do you prevent? Is it even possible? Would more police presence at these types of Jewish rallies help, or is it just unavoidable? When you think about how this guy really blended in, it was not really something that
you could prevent.
You think you might easily, right?
I'll tell you, it's even more depressing than that, because the minute something like that happens, it's breaking news, and that interrupts whatever program you're watching. And it so happens I was watching some program that I was very interested in learning about, and they cut it off, and I never got to watch that program. When I went back on, it was no longer available there. So adding insult to injury was terrible. And that's true of every one of these events. They break into any program you're watching. So the joy that you might be getting is interrupted.
And it's also, sadly, the news cycle. It's news for a few days.
News cycle.
It's news for a few days, and then something else happens that's equally or more horrible, and that becomes not such big news anymore because of the next one. Like after the shooting in Washington, D.C. of the engaged couple, we had the thing in Boulder. So it gets displaced by more and more terrible headlines. But here's one thing I thought very interesting. See what your reaction is. That Solomon, he had taken a concealed carry class because he wanted to get a gun.
What kind of
concealed, where you can a special class to have a gun, not a concealed, where it's in your holster.
Why do they give that class?
I guess before you can apply to own one, you have to take a class, like sometimes you have to take pardon the expression, gun safety class or something like that. It's like driver's ed, right? You have to take a class on defensive driving before they'll give you a license. So, but here's what happened. So he wanted to get a gun, but apparently in Colorado this is the case, as a non-citizen, because he was here for a 2-year work visa. You can't get a gun, and so he couldn't purchase a gun, and had to resort to flames. So here's the thing: one, what does it say about gun control laws, and the need to have them? Maybe they actually worked in this case because he couldn't get a gun, And what do we always hear? The real interesting point, I think, from this example is how often do we hear guns don't kill people, people kill people?
Yeah.
But in this case, what do you think would have happened if he could have walked into Walmart, as is the case in many other states? Colorado, I think, is a little more strict than other states like Florida or Texas. Do you think that the gun advocates always say, well, he would have killed someone with a knife, or that, it's not, if he wants to kill people, it doesn't matter that he has access to a gun. Well, guess what? It did matter, because he couldn't get a gun, and sadly, a lot of people were injured, but no one was killed. Don't you think if he could get a gun, everyone there would have been killed?
Well, not necessarily.
Well, I would say
everyone.
More than zero, right? And it's if your example in the movie theater, if people say, well, if they want to kill someone, they'll kill them with a knife. But how many people can you kill with a knife versus a semi-automatic weapon? Right? I mean, how many? If he had a knife, okay, maybe he could hurt a few people. But if he had a semi-automatic weapon, he could have killed 50 people.
The National Rifle Association, the biggest advocates for gun availability, that's funded enormously by the gun manufacturers, the gun wholesalers, the gun retailers. who make a fortune selling guns. After the shooting, that was also in Colorado, I think.
Columbine?
No, the movie theater.
I think that's Columbine.
Columbine was a school.
Oh, yeah, it was
I think it was a theater.
Right. It was a movie theater in Colorado.
Theater. And somebody got up with a gun and started shooting, and a number of people were killed. And the NRA, National Rifle Association, the major advocate for the Second Amendment, which somehow the Constitution said, and it didn't say that every man is entitled to a gun. It said every man in a militia, but somehow it's been interpreted by the Supreme Court that every man is entitled to have a gun, and they said, well, the best way to stop somebody with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So could you imagine if all the people in the theater had guns? They could have killed that guy and saved a lot of people. And what they don't realize is if all those people had guns and they stop pulling them out, they don't hit that. Even policemen that are trained rarely hit their targets. And when somebody starts shooting, you don't know who started the shooting. So they would be killing each other. There would be multiple deaths. So it's nonsense. The best way, yes, if one-on-one, and even so, if somebody came into my house and was robbing me, I'd be cooperative. I wouldn't pull a gun. My son-in-law has a gun. I said, that's crazy. He says, yeah, well, it's protection. I said, it may be protection if you could pull it in time and you hit the guy, because once you pull it, you're raising the ante. And then if he starts to shoot, he'll kill you and members of your family and so forth. That's not protection. That's raising. I want to give him whatever he wants and get him the hell out of the house.
But when gun advocates frequently say, if bad guys will always have access to guns, and it's denying access to guns doesn't reduce mass shootings. Well, I think this is an example where that's wrong, where it actually did, by denying this guy, having that rule that said non-citizens can't get guns, actually prevented him from getting a gun.
We also know from experience, it's like a living laboratory, that countries, Australia had a mass shooting in 95. They immediately changed the law about owning guns. You can't get a gun unless you're under the supervision of police for a year, and you to take lessons, and you learn how to store it and so forth. From 95 until about 3 years ago, they never had another single assault. And we have more than one a day. That's more than 365 a year, more than one a day. So there's evidence that availability, sure that they're available if you want to reach out and you can find a seller, but if they're not so readily available as they are in this country, even criminals can't get them. How do you find a guy with a gun? But here, if somebody wants to buy a gun and they go to a weekend, a retailer might be careful in who they sell a gun to. But they have gun shows over the weekend, almost every weekend. And they sell guns like there was cakes or anything. And you can buy 15 guns, 20 guns at a time, and nobody checks your background. It's outrageous, because they call that, the right to own a gun. So there's evidence that by having it unavailable, it reduces these mass assaults.
Yep. I mean, and even though there was injury, there was no death. So I found that pretty interesting.
Also, we make available under that law guns that were prepared for the military to kill as fast as they can and as many as they can in the shortest instance. And they make that readily available to the average civilian. That's outrageous. That's what causes these mass slaughters, these mass assaults.
So let's talk about prevention some more. So maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there was a TV series called Person of Interest, and it was about a brilliant computer scientist who invented what they called the machine that took as input all of the different cameras and media and all information that was available, and was a giant AI computer system, and it had the ability to predict harm that was to be that somebody.
That was years ago?
Yeah, it was ahead of its time.
Really?
Yeah.
How did it do that?
So
that's like AI before.
Yeah, I mean, it was a science fiction show.
Oh,
but it was based on that premise. And now it's I'm saying it was quite ahead of its time. So so the machine predicted people who were going to be terrorists or people who were going to be victims of crime, and then the good guys would try to thwart that.
Right.
But the point was that here was this, ability to, assimilate all this information and patterns and emails, telephone calls, all this information that was out there in the world. There's a question of, is it, a violation of personal rights, which we'll really address here. But, the result was, and it was the show came out after 9/11. And was sort of, asked that question, is it right for the government, for the good of the people, to try to use this, even if it violates people's personal rights, to protect them against further terrorist attacks and other bad things. So you wonder, in this case, even now more so, where people put stuff on social media. And this guy, Solomon, had social media accounts that were talking about the Muslim Brotherhood and all kinds of stuff in Egypt, where he was from. And so, if you had the ability to synthesize all this information, could you have figured it out, or could you have come up with probable cause, to surveil? I don't know. I mean, that's, is that, how do you balance, security with civil liberties? Would you give up your right to privacy on every one of your phone calls and emails and social media accounts if you knew that it could be used to help, prevent things like this guy from harming all these people?
Look, we don't even grasp. It's beyond our ken to understand their mentality, because I have a friend who's an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, who's very worldly. He's not Muslim, but he's Christian out of Lebanon. And he tells me that he lived with the Muslims, and in Lebanon they had the what do you call it, the president had to be alternated for several years, I think. Had to be Muslim and then for several years Christian, because the population was largely of both. And he says, Morty, you don't realize that their mentality, the mentality of those Muslims in Lebanon are what's the word? They honor death. That Muhammad was advocate of death. That death is You gotta. If somebody's not Muslim, you gotta kill them. You gotta. So it's a whole different mentality. We don't think that way. We can't even envision that. And the best proof is we don't even we're not even careful about it because 9/11 wouldn't happen if we would be alert to these guys that took up flying lessons in the United States of our commercial planes, so they would know how to take over the planes.
But just to fly the plane, not to learn how to take off or land. So that
they learned how to fly too. Yeah.
No, but when they went for flying lessons in Florida, they didn't ask to learn how. They didn't want to learn how to take off, and I don't think maybe even learn how to land.
Oh, yeah.
All they wanted to do was learn how to fly it while it was already in air.
Yeah.
Why would you ever want just to learn how to fly a plane unless you had some kind of crazy notion to fly it into a building?
Clearly, they had a notion.
Exactly.
To knock down.
And that escaped this unusual alarm in the flight.
No, but I'm saying that's if you're watching, that's one of the areas you watch. Who's training for what? So you get clues. But just like you could check who's taken lessons in gun shooting. It's all right to take lessons, but it should be under the supervision.
How about who's buying assault weapons?
Right.
That's even more direct.
Right, to kill.
I mean, who would ever think someone learning to fly a plane was going to fly it into a building? I mean, now, but back you never thought. However, people buying thousands of rounds of ammunition and assault weapons, maybe you're not doing target practice.
Unbelievable.
So, I don't know.
I don't know. The Constitution gives us a lot of rights, but even rights have to be limited. They have to have, Trump is right, we need a border. You need a border with behavior. So you can't say kill the president, even though it's allowed. You say it's free speech. But if you say everybody should run out and get a gun so they could kill the president, you're moving from free speech to maybe encouraging behavior that will be detrimental to others. So, but right now, they take the position that you can't interfere with free speech. So they take the same position with guns in certain states. How could you prevent somebody from owning a gun? They want it for their own protection. So you get shootouts like you used to get in the old days in Texas. They meet up with each other and shoot each other.
Yep. Somehow Colorado, at least on this had that rule in place, which turned out, probably saved people's lives.
Not only that, it gives you exactly what the guy, my friend, said from Lebanon, because the name of the guy who committed that crime was Mohammed, the founder of the religion, who was the biggest advocate of death. Even if you're a Palestinian and you kill innocent kids and Israelis that are just civilians, you get 12 virgins. There's an inducement to kill.
I think it's more than 12. I think it's
72.
Yeah,
72.
You're selling them short.
No, lately I guess they cut
Inflation.
it to 12. No, they cut it to 12 because too many
inflation.
Too many of them got heart attacks from overindulgence.
Unfortunately, anti-Semitism is such a big topic to discuss. We're actually out of time this week, and we had a few other areas to talk about. Maybe we'll do part 2 next week, because we did have a number of other things to discuss, like how Israel fits in and the issues going on with Harvard. I think there's a lot.
Anti-Semitism certainly
We'll need
warrants more than a half hour.
One session, that's
because, right. And also another thing that's interesting outside of anti-Semitism, as Bill Gates said, that Musk, the richest man in the world, is advocating taking food out of the mouths of babies, of those kids on poverty, and killing them just so that we could give more money to the top billionaires and trillionaires. Yeah? He found that unbelievable.
So, all right, thank you for this interesting discussion. I think maybe next week we'll do some part 2 and then pick it up then.
Have a great week. I love you all. You are sensational. Stay healthy. Stay happy. Smile. Give joy to others. You'll get back many times the investment. And you'll make it's contagious. You'll make for a happier family, a happier community, a happier state, a happier country, and a happier world. God bless you, and have a wonderful every day of your life till you're 120. After that, we'll negotiate for more. God bless you. I love you. Bye.